Welcome to Nobilis Erotica, the best science fiction and fantasy erotica podcast in the known universe. This week's story, Zero Gravity Gay Sex. This is episode 451. I am your host, Nobilis Reed. This episode of Nobilis Erotica is sponsored by the generous patronage of Nobilis Erotica listeners. To help out paying the authors and voices that create these stories, visit patreon.com/Nobilis. The November patron-funded story is Hard Sci Fi by S. Wolf. The story is narrated by yours truly. Here we go. Hard Sci Fi. They say you're not a real spaceman until you've fucked a guy in 0G. Easy enough to screw in the habitation pod with centrifugal force plus a hunk keeping you pinned to the bed and panting, but leave the pod and things get much more difficult. For every action, an opposite reaction. For every thrust, you will deflect backwards and coast until you smash into something. By the time you've slowed down, any number of things could happen. You could shatter a limb, or spin out into space, or hit the wrong bulkhead and detonate a fuel tank, or lose your boner. Only a true astronaut can fuck while calculating Newtonian physics. Technically, I was still a cadet when Sunglow suggested we leave the habitation pylon for some fun. But Sunglow had been a starfarer for 20 standard years, and if he said you were ready, that was enough for anyone. He had silver hair and the sort of cute, stretched-out vertebrae you can only get from years in the void. He had the sexy confidence of a man who could perform a Hohmann transfer. We'd fucked a few times, but to be honest, I was surprised that he wanted to do me in 0G. I'd been dreaming about going for a fling for years, same as anyone else, but I can't say he was the guy I had in mind. But Sunglow must have had a thing for me, because one day after breakfast, he pulled me aside and whispered in my ear, "Antares, meet me in cargo container ventral aft 5 at 1830. Now, most of our cargo containers were for hauling bulk inorganic matter, but container ventral aft 5 was carrying some plants for the new colony on the smaller of Alluvia's moons, so it had breathable air and a bit of open space. We technically weren't supposed to go anywhere near it, but if Sunglow said it was okay, who was I to argue? My shift ended at 1600. I went back to my bunk. I opened my locker and fished out my leather chest harness. I'd once heard that leathers under a spacesuit tended to chafe, so I decided to wear a standard uniform shirt over the harness, at least for now. I walked down the concourse to the airlock, vented the chamber, and, with the go-ahead from security, who'd seen it all before, exited the ship. I tested the RCS before orienting myself afterwards and initiating a quickie burn. The ship occluded the sunlight, but as I drifted along the length of the spine, I caught a brief glimpse of Sunglow, illuminated by the molten glow of one of the ventral heat radiators. He was tethered to an unmarked crate. He blinked his signal light twice at me. I blinked back, flirtatiously. The container we were aiming for was one of those newfangled autonomous drone models, the kind with a built-in thruster array that can complete low-velocity transfers without the aid of a pseudoclaw or arm of heaven. I don't like to mess with them because the drones always think they're smarter than you, but at least I didn't need to jam anything open with a crowbar. A simple skeleton key byte stream was enough to be granted full permission. The airlock was on the floor of the container, extruded on the container's long end, a good 10 meters from the ship's spine. I felt my headlights turn on as I entered the container's shadow, and I nulled my velocity. Then I moved ventralwards 5 meters or so until I'd cleared the container, nulled my velocity again, and then up, dorsalwards, and grabbed the airlock ring. Sunglow, of course, was way ahead of me. He managed to perform an expertly timed arc like a micrograv skater. He tossed the crate into the container like it was a sling, and then played the tether, giving and taking slack to ease the crate in. As I drifted over the airlock, Sunglow held out his hand. I rotated to grasp his hand, and he gently pulled me in. We waited for the docking chamber to pressurize before removing my spacesuit. I took off my shirt to reveal the leather chest harness, and was briefly embarrassed when I realized that Sunglow was just wearing his standard-issue uniform. He raised an eyebrow, smiled, and drew me towards his face, upside down from mine, and kissed me. I got the butterflies in my stomach feeling that's only possible when you're in 0G and your inner ear already can't find up or down. I put my hands under his shirt. I grabbed him and turned him towards me and, "Careful," he whispered into my ear, the muscles in his powerful arms suddenly clenching, "or we'll initiate chaotic movement." I nodded and then kissed him again. I drew him in slowly this time and cushioned the rebound by locking legs and arms. We drifted across the room, running our hands over each other. Sunglow reached out an arm and grasped an exposed structural beam to halt our trajectory. I gripped his cock and rubbed it. He still had his pants on, but I couldn't yet figure out how to unzip him without propelling myself away. He stopped kissing long enough to say, "Give me your hand." He guided me to his crotch. "Now unzip me, but grasp the back of my shoulder with your other hand like this." He let go of me briefly to hold onto the beam and kick off his pants before rotating around, grabbing me with his legs and pulling me back in. I stroked his thick while he removed my shirt. I tried to take off my underpants like he did, but I only managed to send us both into a lazy somersault. This time Sunglow steadied himself by grabbing onto one of the racks and reeled me in by pulling on my hair. It hurt, but it was hot. "Very naughty," he murmured. "I'll have to do something about that." "What are you going to do to me?" I asked, feeling myself get hard. "Stabilize yourself to the rack and wait here." And I did as he said, gripping a rail on the rack with both hands. Sunglow kissed me and then kicked off at a perfect angle towards the crate, still tethered, which was drifting a few meters forward of us. He caught the crate mid-flight and careened toward a bulkhead, which he caught with his right foot. He gently pulled the crate in, tied off the tether, and opened the crate. He drew from it a length of rope. He kicked off the crate, rope in hand, letting it uncoil behind him. "I'm going to tie you with this to the cargo rack." "I'm not that careless," I said in exasperation. "You think this is a safety precaution?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "This is just to make sure you behave." Getting tied up by Sunglow was beautiful. I watched his muscles tense as he tied my wrists together, then my legs up and behind me, and then tying it off to one of the cargo racks. With each and every twist and pull, his other arm pushed and pulled a counterforce. He stayed perfectly stable while he stroked my chest hair as I drifted, delightfully helpless. Sunglow maneuvered behind me. I felt the cool of lube on my ass. The special zero-G stuff, of course. Nothing is more embarrassing than leaving globs of insufficiently viscous lube floating in the cabin air like a goddamn amateur. I grunted as he entered me. He started gentle, then sped up, the rope in his muscular arms absorbing much of the inertia but keeping enough bounce that I was left breathless with excitement. There's getting your ass filled with cock, and getting your ass filled with cock when there's no such thing as up or down. You're the center of everything, the center of nothing, all at the same time. And the closeness, the tension, the release just to stay together. I felt his cock flail wildly, uninhibited by gravity, even as I clenched and he pushed. I arched back, trying to ram my ass into him. Immediately, he let go of my waist with his left hand and grabbed my hair, stabilizing our motion. I moaned, and he started pounding harder. The ropes creaked. "I'm gonna come in you," he whispered. "Scream for me, bitch." That's when it all went haywire. Sunglow's thrusting had jostled the rope, and with his final glorious climax, it slipped off the rack entirely and sent us both hurling through the container. "Ah, shit!" Sunglow moaned, in a potent combination of orgasm and crisis assessment. I don't know how fast we were moving, but it was too fast. We were spinning, and then suddenly the entire capsule lurched. The bulkhead rushed towards us. Sunglow's bare, sweaty arms covered my face just before we crashed into something. His body absorbed most of the impact force. When I opened my eyes again, he was still holding me, still coming in me, as we tumbled in an ecstatic quaternion. Sunglow bellowed and reached out and caught the airlock hatch. He gripped me around the waist with his muscular thighs and roughly halted our motion. Sunglow carefully pulled out of me. "What?" I said, gasping. "The fuck just happened?" "I just came at you," Sunglow said. "But what else?" "Oh, that. We initiated a separation burn from the main ship. 10 seconds at least. Damn drone containers, I said. It must have detected a loss of mass and decided to detach and retroburn. Why'd we stop? I think the ship overrode the maneuver and shut the drone down. Jesus, can the ship rendezvous with us? How are you? Excuse me? I just came in you. How do you feel? I searched for the right words. Heavenly. Attention, cargo container aft ventral 5, the captain said on the radio. Cargo container aft ventral 5. Sunglow, are you there? I'm here, sir, Sunglow said. Antares and I are just assessing the seed packs on this container. There was a malfunction of some kind. The drone decided to detach. Where are we right now? What's your status? The captain asked. We're fine, Sunglow replied. Cargo looks fine. I wouldn't boot up the drone brain again without a full diagnostic first. Checking it out, though. Acknowledged, Sunglow. Navigation tells me the delta V to rendezvous is about 20 meters per second, which we can manage on the ion thrusters. We'll be on an intercept trajectory in 4 minutes. Try not to knock the cargo container around any further. Yes, sir, Sunglow said. The radio clicked off. Knock the cargo container around? I asked. Everyone knows we just fucked, Sunglow said. Why else would we be here? There's nothing we need to check on this container. It's not exactly rocket science. So I guess that means we're done, I said, disappointed. No, I didn't say that, Sunglow said, reaching down to stroke my cock. I tried to squirm out of the way, but I was still tied up, and he still held the end of the rope. I felt myself getting hard again. Given the 4 minutes and the time required for the ion array to complete the burn, I say we have 30 minutes or so until rendezvous. You see, he said to me softly in my ear, it's all a matter of magnitudes. Sorry, I don't understand, I said. By way of explaining himself, he started to untie my legs. The motion from this blowjob is going to add to the container's current tumble, but not so much that the ship's navigator won't be able to course correct for it. Spread your legs. I did as I was instructed, and as he sucked on me, I thought, truly, I am now a man of the stars. And that's our story. Over on the Patreon campaign this month, we're welcoming Celeste and Kyle. Along with all of our other patrons, they will be receiving 2 chapters a month of the 3rd volume of the Monster Whisperer series, titled Monster Whisperer 3rd Person. Big thanks to Celeste, Kyle, and all of my other loyal supporters. You guys are great. You have been listening to the Nobilis Erotica podcast. The music is composed and performed by Mass Relay. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Until next time, listen hard.